How to fix Haney versus Kambosos 2. Now, the first fight was full of fouls and cheating, and it just wasn't a great fight. It was a decent wrestling match if you guys like wrestling. However, I suggest you stick to UFC if you do. They are much better at it than Haney. But we're going to take a look at a couple of instances in which, for some reason, Devin Haney's best defense here is ducking below the waist of his opponent here, Kambosos. Now, we're going to take a look at the first clip here. Fourth round, Devin Haney trying to be athletic. Again, he's not the greatest boxer. He doesn't have the greatest feinting game, probing, control of the line, the greatest amount of craft. So he's going to shoot this jab, and the way that he chooses to defend himself is ducking below the waist. Okay? Now, his left hand is up near the line, but that's only so that he can grab Kambosos here and start holding him right after. Now, immediately after grabbing him, I want you to pay attention now. He starts shoving him to the ropes and begin wrestling and trying to, not just free his head, but push him to the ropes and kind of roughhouse him and make it not a boxing match, but a wrestling match. Now, we're going to take a look at a few, actually we got a bunch of clips here, but again, Haney ducking below the waist. A very big problem in this fight, and we're going to talk about a little bit about this here too, but check him out, grabbing him again by the waist. So not only has he ducked below the waist, which is illegal, but he's also shown a propensity to be trying to grab and hold Kambosos off of those. Okay, now, Kambosos is coming forward here with the big leaping shot here, and for some reason, somehow, Devin Haney is able to get all the way under it. Even though Kambosos is ducking, he's throwing it low, and now he's going to be bringing his weight forward, but notice Haney catches him, and that stops him from using his momentum and actually holds him in the air. A lot of people on the outside are not going to see how significant this is, but Kambosos probably should have wound up flying into the ropes after throwing a shot like this. But Haney was able to catch him and hold him because he's much bigger. And then also look for offense here while Kambosos is being completely held up by Devin Haney. Okay? And this is the opportunity that Devin Haney is looking to throw a punch at Kambosos. Not here when he's out here on the ropes, out here in the middle of the ring, right? Waiting until he gets an opportunity to grab him before looking to line anything up. Now, this clip is going to be more significant as we get through the film study, but let's go ahead and kind of take a look at a little spot here, okay? Now, this is Kambosos' main, or Haney's main source of offense, right? He's going to come in, jab, duck below the waist again, and now he's going to try to body up, and again, grabbing Kambosos. Now, holding is technically illegal, okay? But number one, he's shooting the jab, which is fine. He's ducking below the waist, which is not fine. So he cheated. Now, off the back of his cheat, in order to stop him from taking counter punches, right, he's going to duck below the waist, removing all of his visible targets. And now he's going to also come up and try to cheat as well. Again, tying Kambosos up and preventing himself from having any openings, right? A lot of people are going to say this is great boxing or this is whatever. But he's looking to cheat, right? Neither of these tactics are explicitly in the rules of boxing as okay. But the interesting thing is this is the kind of control that he had over Kambosos all fight, holding him and being able to manipulate him and push him around the ropes and control his body physically. Now, this is kind of a long clip here, okay? We're gonna play it, and it's got Devin Haney shooting his jab here. And what does he do after he shoots his jab right there, guys? He immediately ducks below the waist. Okay? Now, this is an important clip because this is all at the end of the round one, okay? Now, we're going to kind of skip ahead just a little tiny bit. And if the clip will play, please play for me, guys. Now, Devin Haney is going to come forward again, and he's going to step with his jab, feinting, and again, ducking below the waist, right? This is part of his plan. You guys, you can see him setting it up. His opportunity to kind of shoot the jab and then duck below the waist and hold. And he's going to do it here. Shoot the jab. He's trying to land it now. Now he's ducking below the waist. And we can see him reaching out to grab Kambosos. It doesn't work this time, and he gets kind of hit with a forearm, kind of a wrist, and then a combination punch here. Boom, boom, boom. And then even a right hand. But when Devin Haney is not allowed to actually hold, or he misses his hold, or the timing, or the rhythm of it, he's going to get hit. And this is what's supposed to happen. Okay, Devin Haney's trying to abuse the rhythm and the timing of which he can interact with his opponent with his jab, and then how quickly he can duck below the waist and remove all of his targets, and then come up holding you again, stopping you from being able to hit him, so that there are no space after his jab to hit him. Okay, and it's kind of a spoiling tactic. Now, as this next 10 seconds unfolds, again, Devin Haney comes in with his jab, stepping forward, and gets countered. Now he's going to duck below the waist, and now where can Kambosos safely punch? All the opportunities that he legally had to throw his right hand are gone, because now he's technically maybe throwing it at the back of Devin Haney's head. But if this is as easy as it is to get away from somebody's right hand, is simply make it, number one, illegal for them to throw it at you, because you're not allowed to throw punches below the waist anyway. But simply by always having your head, the back of your head pointed at them when you duck below the waist, now it's always illegal, right? But there's more. Immediately, okay, after shooting his jab and then ducking below the waist and then feinting his jab and ducking below the waist and then getting caught, he finally makes it into a position where he can throw a shot, duck below the waist, grab and hold, and now he's going to start wrestling and holding and hitting. Again, all part of the plan for Haney's craft, right? The way that he kind of builds his strategy for fighting, okay? And now again, end of the first round, he's going to get feinted, boom, ducks below the waist, and now is Kambosos supposed to wait there to see if he grabs him? What is he supposed to do? Well, doesn't matter. Haney comes up, throws a shot, but what does Haney do right after throwing his right hand? Does he use any type of defensive responsibility? Does he stay in boxing position? Does he defend his position? Does he roll? He immediately puts Kambosos into a Muay Thai clinch. He starts trying to grab and control his head so he doesn't have to fight him. Okay? Again, Haney's entire game plan in this fight was to spoil it. Be faster than Kambosos on the outside, and then duck under the line, and then be bigger and tie him up on the inside so that he can't actually fight the fight. Now we're going to take a couple more looks. Again, here's the end of the second round. And now this is an average sequence for someone like Kambosos or for Haney, right? He's going to blast onto the line, shoot that jab, and now he has to be fast enough to get off the line from his opponent's jab. Now again, ducking below the waist, but we also saw him still get hit by the jab, right? So as long as he's not allowed to hold, he still has to use his very, very fast and athletic style to dodge punches. Okay, so if he's ducking below the waist, but he's not using it to further cheat and to hold as well, maybe it's not as bad. Because again, this style takes a lot more energy on the line, duck, off the line. It's very energy consuming to always try to be faster than your opponent. Okay, and again in this sequence, Kambosos having more than enough opportunities to interact with Haney and find opportunities to attack him. No big deal. Okay. Now, again, it's still going to be up to the ref's discretion to let him how he uses the ducking below the waist. And I'm not saying ducking below the waist is okay. I'm just saying that it's not as big of a deal because he's not chaining his fouls together. Okay? Now, when we get back to talking about fouls, okay, let's talk about Devin Haney's craft. So he's going to get on the line here, shoot his jab, and if he shoots his jab and he's trying to land it, then he's going to duck below the waist and leave. If he's not trying to land it, he's going to shoot a right hand. Now, if he shoots it and lands it, he spoils the fight by ducking below the waist and leaving, or ducking below the waist and holding. If he shoots his right hand, he spoils the fight, like we saw before, by holding, right? And now he's got a hold of him with both hands, and now he's going to try to wrestle him and hit him in the body there, right? Again, forcing the fight into a more of a wrestling match than a boxing match. Now again, as this clip kind of goes forward, this is a 22-second clip, by the way, and it's very important that we kind of play it in its entirety because that's a whole sequence right there, right? Devin Haney got through throwing his right hand, tied him up, and nothing happened before that, right? Now immediately, they're going to be on the line. Devin Haney's going to get into position. He's going to throw his right hand, and now duck below the waist. Is this good boxing, guys? Is this when you imagine yourselves being great fighters? Is this how you imagine yourself in your sparring sessions? With your head on somebody else's crotch? cheating to duck below punches because you don't have the skills to defend them? Now, the interesting thing is, Devin Haney is one of the best conditioned, one of the best athletes. He is fast. He has no power. I know he wants you to believe that he has power, but he doesn't have any power. He could do anything. So why does he fight like this? Right? Is this how we... And then again, tying him up and now shoving him to the ropes, right? Trying to wrestle him. Look at him. This is his plan, okay? Now he's got his hand in Kambosos' face, right? He initiated this. This was his fault. And now he has Kambosos pinned on the ropes. And do you know what? The referee talks to Kambosos after this. Okay? But this is the fight. This is the game plan that Haney has outlined for us for the fight. Okay? Starts out here doing nothing. Right? Bullshit, bullshit, bullshit. And now they're holding. Right? Haney's going to throw one little punch. 1, 2. And now he's holding. And he's got to wrestle. And then they're going to do the same exact thing. Okay? And again, bringing us to this situation here. This is moments after that. And again, Haney's grabbing, holding, and trying to hit him behind the head. The only real opportunity that he's finding to throw punches is when he has him held. And again, the same thing over and over and over again. Which clip is this? Okay. Now, this is a very interesting clip too. Let me make sure I didn't miss any. No. This is a very interesting clip because, again, he's going to come in, shoot the 1, shoot the 2, and again, Devin Haney's ducking below the waist. Where are the legal targets? Look at how far between his own legs his head is. Okay? Now, off of this, he's going to wrap his arm around Kambosos while Kambosos is trying to punch him with the left hand. Kambosos was fine just a second ago throwing punches. He just took a step. He's throwing his left hand. But now, as Devin Haney pivots, he's throwing Kambosos. Okay, again, wrapping his arm around Kambosos and using the strength that he has for his size advantage to throw Kambosos around while Kambosos is in a superior position. Again, because Devin Haney is a cheater. Okay? He doesn't understand how to use defensive responsibility. He has no idea what position he's even going to be in after someone throws a punch at him. He has no idea. And he's constantly putting himself in these positions where he's cheating. Some fighters might have been thrown out of the ring here or been tripped. But this is many, many, many times throughout the course of this fight that he used this tactic. And now here's the thing. If he didn't grab Haney's arm here, he would have maybe thrown out of the ring. And what's the referee going to do right after this engagement? He's going to scold Kambosos for holding Haney's glove. Not Haney for throwing him and pushing him around like he's been doing all fight long. Again, I don't know where Kambosos got that referee. And if you guys live in Australia and you know this guy, you owe him an egg to his house, or like, I don't know what kind of dangerous, you guys got a lot of dangerous animals. Maybe you like prank him with some shit. Why is this clip showing up so many times? I don't need to show that shit again. And now that brings us to 5 things we can do instead of cheat with Blair Cobbs. Okay, now Blair Cobbs is going to manage to do all of these things and fight off Alexis Roach's jab here. Okay, he's going to be able to do it just fine. Okay, so here comes Rocha with the jab here. Now instead of ducking below the waist and grabbing his opponent by the waist, ducking below the waist and then grabbing by the waist and then trying to punch him in the back of the head, he's going to pull counter him. Beautiful. Sets up a combination. Uh-oh. Now notice he didn't use defensive responsibility either. That's really interesting. Okay, that's from Cobbs. That's really interesting, right, guys? We're going to talk about that in a second, okay? Oh, now he comes off. He's going to pull counter with the 1-2. Beautiful work. So he pull counter with the 2. He pull counter with the 1-2, right? And then again, throwing combinations. But what happened? Now he's ready to be hit, right? That's fascinating. What an interesting idea. Okay, so now his opponent comes in with the jab. And again, Cobbs having no problem timing and controlling Alexis Roach's jab. Very similar to how Haney was able to get under Kambosos' jab. right? Very similar. So if Blair Cobbs can figure out all these little tricks, right? So now he's going to slip to the outside and step with his jab and jab to the head. So beautiful work, slipping to the outside of the jab, landing a jab, beautiful. That's the third technique. Fourth technique, your opponent comes in with the jab, you time him, you're going to slip to the front foot and hit him with a right hand over the top. Now, these guys are both southpaw, so it's still the same thing in the closed matchup, the closed stance matchup. But shooting the shot right over the top, and again, if you can time your opponent's shot and you can see it coming and you can duck under the waist so efficiently, and you can time it so efficiently, why can you not land this shot over the top like Blair Cobbs? Okay, now a couple of things to talk about. Number one, the reason Devin Haney doesn't counter more jabs and the reason he prefers to spoil the fight is because even when he counters, just like when he throws his right hand, his best tool is to hold and spoil the fight. So if he counters, he immediately has to move into a position where he's going to be holding again. And it's very, very difficult to do that. It's very unpredictable to do that against someone who was initiating an attack against you. Right? You got to counter them and then hold them right away. Where's the surprise? They were already in the momentum. They were already coming. Maybe they're going to follow up, right? Now, that's not to say that that's not going to be dangerous for any pull counter or this or that or that. But it's just an interesting idea that all of Devin Haney's defense revolves around the idea of spoiling the fight and not countering. Okay? And real quick, before we move on to the last clip, okay? This motion here, him slipping to the outside of the jab, and then he comes back in, is very similar to ducking below the waist. So Devin Haney ducking below the waist and then not coming up with his counter shows that he's doing literally half the work that Blair Cobbs is. But most of that motion is built in to the cheat that Devin Haney's using. Okay? Again, same thing. Crouch and then comes up. Very similar motion. Again, it's very difficult. It's much more difficult to do what Blair Cobbs is doing than it is to do what Devin Haney's doing. Okay? Anyone can throw a punch and then duck below the waist and pray that the referee saves them. Okay? Now, we're going to take it to the last clip. So, what's the next step, right? Well, again, Blair Cobbs has a problem. He's not the best at moving his head after he punches. So, you're going to use your jab to set up your opponent to draw them into your line so you can counter them. Oh, so little, egg on Blair Cobb's face here, right? He had been doing so well with the pull counters. He got drawn into making one, and Rocha was able to attack him and set up something off of his own offense. Now, this is in round 6, right? The reason that this is important is because this is how all fights work. Every fight works exactly the same way. You're going to have one guy who's going to be a little bit better with his jab games, and then he's going to be able to play them for longer. Think Terrence Crawford. He's good with the jab, pull, jab pull, right, jab, pull, jab, 1-2. He's really good with all of his games. And fighters who are not as good at those games, who do not have as good a technique, who look like they're faster because they have better technique, who hit harder because they have better technique, they get really rewarded for being able to play these games. Okay? And this is the level that all fights start at, is playing around the jab and then playing around the right hands and playing around the next trap. And Devin Haney being able to consistently duck below the waist and avoid having to play any of the boxing games, any of the rules of boxing, means that he's playing a different game than anyone else gets to train in the gym. Okay? Now, we can talk about, whether it should be legal or this or that. But here's the thing. Number one, ducking below the waist. It's illegal because, number one, if you duck all the way below the waist and I throw a punch under there, what if I hit you in the dick? It's in the same spot, right? Similar, right? How can I tell? That's the argument that people made when Kovalev ducked below the waist, even though he got punched in the dick a bunch of times, right? But also ducking your head below the waist is dangerous. If somebody punches your head at the top of your head, you may fracture your hand. punching a brick wall, right? Thomas Hearns broke his hand against Marvin Hagler, and I don't know what punch, but Hagler would put his head down, coming forward with his head. Is that super fair to him? Anyway, there are a lot of sequences in the fight that did not go super well for Devin Haney because without ducking below the waist, without holding, Devin Haney's level of defensive responsibility is actually very low. His defense isn't very good. He's not a power puncher. So the more time that he spends on the line with you, the worse for him. So right now he's kind of getting away with being the bigger, the stronger guy. He's very athletic. He's very fast. But his tactics are not legal. Okay? We shouldn't have to sit through another hour-long presentation of this. Ducking below the waist and spoiling the fight. Now, there's another facet to this as well. Okay? How much energy at the fight did Kambosos have? How much energy at the end of the fight? We don't know, right? But we know he lost. So, really interestingly, why is it that this fight, or this sport, boxing, is the only sport that you wait until the absolute end of it to know the score? Right? You don't shoot a basketball and then they'll tell you later, number one, if it counted. And number two, how many points it'll be worth. Right? Understanding your position in relation to your opponent and knowing how many points you need has a direct relationship on what types of shots you take, what types of plays you make. Higher risk, higher reward, right? If you're behind. So again, another one of the problems with this fight is when you're watching it, you don't actually know who's winning. Right? Isn't that a huge problem in boxing? I know everyone wants to say, oh, well then at the end of the fight, you'll have guys who are just running around. Okay, so they lost the round. Did they win enough rounds that they're allowed to just do that? Well then, how did that guy wind up 7 rounds down before he decided, oh, well, I guess I better pick it up? Because in the order of operations, that's not how it works. Okay? A guy goes out there, he fights hard, he loses round 1. You think he's just going to go out there and be like, okay, fuck it, I lost round 1, who cares? I'll just go around, okay, I'll lose round 2 as well. Okay, who cares? I'll lose round 3. I can come back. Do you think that people are going to wait till round 7 to start picking it up or decide that they're going to quit? No. We're going to get better fights. We're going to get better fights faster. You think that Anthony Joshua would have taken the last 2 rounds off in his fight with Usyk if he would have known that he had a chance to win the fight? Do you think that he would have started fighting harder sooner once he realized it was slipping away? These things have a big impact on the way that fighters and coaches approach the fight. And having an ambiguous score system, and not even just that, like the idea that it's ambiguous, fine, right? No one's ever going to be able to convince everyone to say, Triple G won the second fight, right? We're never going to get 100% of people saying yes, no matter how well we define the scores. But at least allowing a fighter to know what the scores are during the fight, to understand how much effort they need to exert. Like a great example, Comey versus Pedraza last night. I had Comey winning that fight. Comey had Comey winning that fight. A lot of people had Pedraza winning. Pedraza thought he won. These guys just fought each other to a draw. Do you know what that means? That was basically an exhibition. And why? Well, number one, the judges were fucking shit. Okay, the judges were terrible. Number two, because Haney doesn't know, or because Comey doesn't know when he's behind or when he's up, and Pedraza doesn't know when he's behind or when he's up. Okay? And the thing about boxing is everyone in order to be a boxer at this high level, right? You know how you have crazy fucks like Rolly Romero saying, I'm the greatest fighter ever. I'm this, whatever he says, like I'm the best lightweight or I'm the best. Everyone that's a fighter thinks they're the Michael Jordan. This is the reason we're in boxing and we're not in team sports. We want that moment to say, oh, we were down. And we came back. We struggled and we worked hard. And, even in a fight that, we're supposed to be winning, like Loma versus Teofimo Lopez. Say we knew what the scores were going into that fight, going into the 10th, 11th, and 12th rounds. You think we would have gotten a better Lomachenko? You think we would have gotten a better Lomachenko in round 3? What about round 4 or 5? I think it's important for the sport to continue to evolve and that scoring gets figured out. I think that open scoring is a must, and not just because it'll be better for the fighters, but it'll be better for the fans too. Sitting there thinking, oh, who did you think won? It's a great conversation. It's a great conversation in between rounds. But when I had this great debate during the 3rd round of this fight, and this and that, I didn't have anyone. I don't remember by the time the 5th round rolls around, what I thought about that round, why I thought this guy won that round or that. So when I get the scorecards, now I got to go rewatch the fight. Anyway, a few ways to fix the scoring system. Okay. Number 1, so maybe an unpopular idea. You just don't count body shots. Right? Body shots are your gravy. If you get a knockdown because of a body shot, it's because it hurt. If you hit someone to the body and you don't knock them down, how do you judge whether it was an effective punch or not? Right? Well, if it was a good punch, maybe it allowed you to land more punches. Right? Well, in that case, did you knock him down? Okay. But headshots, right? Maybe that's an idea. If you don't even have if there's no ambiguity that body shots are worth nothing, they're still valuable. You can still wear a guy down. Anyway, number 2, interesting way to look at the ring, okay? The center of the ring, like king of the hill, right? If the center of the ring is worth more points per second, right? Right? What was that company that tried to come up with a funny way to fix boxing rings? They made it rounded, and it was like a weird wall kind of thing where you kind of like start stepping on the wall. I don't know. It was interesting. But they had a bunch of, I think Gabriel Rosado fought in that. Anyway, really tough. I'm not really saying that that's a good idea. But one thing that should absolutely be happening, absolutely, unequivocally, is the referees should be handing in their scorecards every single round. They shouldn't be the ones tallying up their own marks, looking at the fight saying, well, I gave the last 3 to Kambosos, so maybe I should give 1 to Haney this round, or vice versa, to make it look like it's not a fix, right? Make sure your scorecard's going to line up, right? There are 1,000 reasons. But more importantly, if it's done, if the data is in, if the judge has scored the round, why is that information not available? Why is it not available to the fans immediately? In fact, maybe there should be cameras on the judges at all times. Maybe we should be able to watch them. Watch their scoreboard. What do they think? See their notes. Do they got tallies? But the idea that they're allowed to hold the winner of the fight hostage until the end so that they can, whatever, for whatever reason, any reason is too much. Okay? There's no reason that they shouldn't have lives round by round scoring for the fighters. That at the beginning of the round, round 7 starts, scores are in, and it says, I only know the names of a few judges, but like Chuck Jampa and I don't know the names of it. Adelaide Bird, I think she sucks. I think that's the one that's really bad. I'm not sure. And that one that always gives the fights to Canelo, no matter who he's fighting. But they should be forced to put their scores and turn their scores in. Like, do we even get to know at what time those rounds, those scores are posted, are written in? Do we know if it's round by round? Do we know if they wait and they think? Anyway, the fight's not easy. Judging's not easy. But the fighter, in this case, Devin Haney, needs to be held to some standard. And moments like this is not boxing, okay, guys? I guarantee not one of you guys practices this move on the heavy bag. Okay? And if you do, I hope you decide to practice the stuff that Blair Cobbs does instead. And I know that Blair Cobbs got beat up by Haney, but who knows how interesting that sparring session was when you always get to be the A side. Hey, he's a top prospect. Don't hurt him. You know. But accountability for the judges as well. It shouldn't be as ambiguous as it is. Fighters should know going into each round whether or not they lost the last round, right? Like, even if it's ambiguous, right? You should still know what the score is each round, right? And even better, when your favorite fighter loses a close round, and you're like, wait, he didn't lose that round. He won that round. That's bullshit. And everyone puts up the scorecard saying Canelo won that round, even though he got beat up. Everyone can boo them. And then you can see how many times a fighter's scorecards were popular, right? Oh, well, the Inside Arena didn't agree with this. Okay, they're the ones that were there. Boo, that scorecard. That guy fought hard. He should have won that round. And at the end of every round, or at the beginning of every round, when the scores go up, you can say, well, the crowd agreed with the scores 9 times out of 10. Maybe that's a good sign. Who won the fight won the fight. You know, obviously there's bias there, scores, and people scream for punches, but, you know, usually that's not going to be the case, I don't think. But in any case, scores should be present at the beginning of every round for the last round. Judges should not be able to hide that information. There's no reason for it to be hidden. 50 minutes. 50 minutes. That's how long a 12-round fight is. 48 minutes long. Okay? Someone scores a touchdown. Those points go on the board immediately. Someone scores a basket, a home run, a soccer goal. Okay? Immediately. Why does boxing have to be so corrupt?